Welcome back to r/neighbors from hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors. And if you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community. And without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. The first one is titled, "Neighbor built an illegal fence around my land and got me trespassed from my own property." Is it really that hard to just keep to your own property? If you ask me and the majority of people, the answer would be an obvious yes. If you ask my neighbor, you might get a totally different answer. Anyway, this is a little long, so I'm just going to jump right into it. My neighbor decided out of the blue that he needed to build a fence to separate our two properties. I'm not a fan of fences in general, but what a man chooses to do on his own land is his business. I did not even notice until a couple days after it was built that the fence was actually built on my side of the property line. Now, for most people, myself included, this usually would not be that big of a deal. A few feet or inches does not mean that much in the long run, but in this case there was a huge issue. I had some plants and even sprinkler system that ended up now on his side of the fence. As you could probably imagine, I was angry that now there was a fence in between me and my own property. The plants were actually a small patch of vegetables that I had spent a long time growing and caring for. I now could not get to them and was not happy about this at all. Looking back, I should have said something at this point, but I didn't. Instead though, I jumped the fence to take care of my vegetables and adjust the sprinkler. The way my sprinkler works is that the whole system is attached to a single valve. That valve is now on the other side of the fence, and without it, I have no way to adjust things like turning it off in the winter and when it rains. I say all this to make sure it is clear that this was the worst possible spot a fence could have gone, and it just so happened that while I was dealing with my vegetables and the valve, my neighbor walked outside of his house and saw me. I will save you the non-existent suspense, he was not happy to see me. "Neighbor, what the hell are you doing in my yard?" Me, "The fence is on my property. This is my fence and my damn yard, and you better get the hell out of here before I make you." I could have left and tried talking to him another time, but I just was not having his aggressive attitude. Me, "You built the fence over the line. My vegetables and sprinkler valve are right there. I am standing on what is technically still my property." He cuts me off about every other word I say to yell more and does not seem to care about anything I gotta say. "Neighbor, don't you know how a damn fence works? You better stay the hell off of my land or I swear I'll make sure you have nothing." He ends up pushing me down hard, and before I can react, he goes inside. What I didn't know at the time is that he actually called the police on me. They showed up and saw me on his side of the fence. I tried to explain things to them, but they said that the fence was all they had to go on without a land surveyor, and they removed me from my own property. They warned that if I trespassed again, I would be arrested and neighbor could file charges. I did not want to go to jail for stepping on my own property. I knew that I needed to get the land surveyed, and I wish I had thought of it sooner because the neighbor had already hired somebody weeks before. It turns out he had a friend that worked as a land surveyor and had him lie on the forms where the property lines were in order to get the fence built in the first place. I hired a guy of my own who looked up the old documents and walked the land. He concluded that I was in the right and I sent a petition to the city with his data. Now they had two different reports from two different surveyors and could not just ignore the problem. They sent a guy of their own to look over the same land for a third and final time. He of course said that I was right and the fence was encroaching over the property line. It took a while for them to get me back the report on the land, but in the end, I was right and the city knew that the fence was bogus. The story does not actually end there though, because I was not done with this neighbor. I followed through to make sure that his friend lost his license over his lies and now was out of a job. I also got a restraining order against the neighbor, which meant that he could not even be in his own backyard while I was there tending to my vegetables or adjusting my valves. I'll admit, I took pleasure in going back there when it was not really necessary, just to see him have to go back inside of his house. He knew that I could and would call the cops on him if he stepped a toe out of line. Of course, one big problem still remained, and that was the fact that the fence was still there. Now, the fence was actually a little complicated because not all of it was on my property, in fact only some of it was, so I could not force the neighbor to actually completely remove it. My land, my rules though, so what I did was go and get a chainsaw to take care of business. I destroyed every bit of fence that was considered on my property and not a plank more. I finally had access again to my area without having to constantly hop over a fence and get glared at by my neighbor. He even tried getting me arrested a second time for trespassing, only for the police to read the report I had from the city regarding the situation and letting me go. What was left at the end was him having half of a fence that was not just useless, but horrifically ugly. Neighbor was furious, and I'm sure if it was not for the restraining order, he would have tried to yell or even assault me again. Instead, I got to watch him from his window as he stared at me while I got to destroy his fence. I don't really care what he ends up doing with that fence or if he just builds a new one in the right spot. All that matters to me is that I have access to my property again, and neighbor is not able to pull a fast one over on me. Like he said himself, this was my damn yard and I was not going to let anybody push me around on it. And Ripe Stars, I gotta say, I am kind of proud of OP in this story because he absolutely did the right thing and taught this awful neighbor the correct lesson. Anyway, if you enjoy the neighbor stories, then please don't forget to like the video because that would help my channel tremendously. Thank you so much in advance, your support is very much appreciated. And the next one is a multi-update Neighbor from Hell story. This one is titled Entitled Neighbor Part 1. I, 31 female, live in a block of 6 units, apartments for non-Australians. A month ago, the unit above mine went up for sale and sold fairly quickly, and the new owner moved in less than a week ago. This morning, I got up and went to take the rubbish out and found a note stuck to my door. I honestly thought it was a "I'm new to the building" kind of note, you know? However, I could not have been more wrong. Dear tenant, I recently bought your building and wish to introduce myself. My name, blah blah, not going to put an actual name, and I think you will find me a fair landlord. However, I do have rules. Number 1, everyone is to be in their units by 9 PM. If you're going to be out past this, I suggest you find accommodation elsewhere. Number 2, no pets allowed. If you have any, they must be relocated before I do an inspection or I will call the ranger to remove them. This is the only warning. Number 3, I will conduct an inspection once a month and you will be present to answer any questions or face eviction. Number 4, failure to pay rent on time will result in your eviction. If we all follow these rules, I'm sure we will get along. Sincerely, Mr. Blah Blah. What the F did I just read? Fun fact about my building, we all own our own units, nobody actually owns the whole building. I won't lie, I got to the number 2 and had a slight panic attack because I have cats and there is no way I was giving them away before I remembered we bought our unit just before Christmas. We rented it from a friend prior and when she told me she was thinking about selling it, we bought it. We did not even have to move. So in some ways it still feels like renting, but we actually own our unit. Now, I am not great at confronting someone and I tend to shake a lot, but at that moment I was quite angry, so I went upstairs and knocked on her door. You know that gut feeling you have? It was spot on. That door opened and there stood a Karen, her hair blonder than my own, her nails long and bright colored. She did not look happy to see me there. I introduced myself and explained that I lived downstairs and that I wanted to talk to her about her note. She started to talk over top of me, explaining that her letter was basic rules and even a child could understand it, and if I did not like her rules, I could hand in a letter to vacate. Wow. I would ask if people are really this up themselves, but I work in retail and could answer my own question. I told her that I actually own my unit, she had not bought it or the rest of the building, but only her own unit, and that she couldn't enforce anything in her note. She did not like that at all. She started yelling at me, saying that yes, she had indeed bought the whole building and that failure to comply with her rules would mean I would be evicted. I was just starting to think maybe I was wrong when another neighbor opened his door. He came out and asked what the issue was about and could she stop screaming as he worked nights and was trying to sleep. I told him I was trying to explain that she had not bought the building and she started yelling again. My neighbor told her to stop and then said the best thing I had heard that day. "Are you stupid?" Her jaw dropped as he explained to her how wrong she was and that he was in fact part of the strata committee, kind of like an HOA that oversees the building, and that she had no right to make rules for everyone. She gave us dirty looks before slamming the door. I thanked him and he said in the entire time he lived there, he had not seen someone so entitled. And the next one is part 2 of the entitled neighbor story. So this is an update to my last post. I had a lot of people ask me to post if she did anything else. This is also currently happening and my SO is witnessing it and texting me as I'm at work. She has been quiet for the last few days and I thought maybe that's it. Apparently I was wrong. So each unit in our building is allocated 1 parking space, just 1. I park in mine and my SO parks his car on the street on the other side of the building. Our parking lot had 1 visitor. It is a very small parking lot, 6 spots for residents and 1 visitor. The visitor spot is nearly always empty and my neighbors have said my SO could park his car there if he wanted, as we are the only unit with 2 cars, but he does not mind parking where he is. This morning my SO woke up to yelling. Our kitchen window overlooks the parking lot and he snuck a peek out the window and saw entitled neighbors standing next to our nice neighbor's car and they were arguing loudly. She kept yelling that she had a second car and needed to park in his spot and he had to move his car or else she would have it towed. He kept repeating that it was his parking spot and she could either park it in the visitor spot or on the street, and if she towed his car he would report it stolen. My SO said she kept yelling that she can park where she wants and he needed to move it or else. So my SO decided to park his car in my empty spot in case she tried to park there while I'm at work. Last message she sent me was that she has stormed upstairs in a huff and slammed her door. Update: I got home from work and she has parked her second car in the visitor spot, but she has parked it so badly it is blocking the driveway in. Right now I am parked on the street, but I'm too tired to deal with her. Update 2, sorry I didn't update sooner, so like I said before, her car was basically blocking the driveway and I had to park on the street. Anyway, when I got up for work the next day it was still there, but when I came home it had gone. I asked my SO as he was at home and apparently a tow truck came and took it away. I'm still not sure which neighbor called the tow truck, but I have a suspicion it is the one she was arguing with. SO said she had been quiet all day, only the odd footsteps. And the next one is the last update to the entitled Neighbor from Hell's story. Well, I am back. As many of you predicted, her entitlement grew. In case anyone missed the update on my last post, her car was towed, but I don't know which neighbor did it. This made her even more angry, but seeing as I was at work, she has not blamed me or my SO. It has been raining all week and as I don't have a dryer, I have not been able to do any big items like sheets or towels, only clothes as I can hang them up inside. On Saturday it was finally sunny and I raced home from work. Dragged my SO out of bed so I could wash all the blankets and dry them in case it rained again. I managed to get through 5 loads of sheets, blankets and towels, and I hung them all out of the line outside. We all share it. There are technically 2 different lines for us to use and we have never had an issue before. I hung out my last load and went inside to chill. I went back out about an hour later to get the first load off and found every single item I had hung out on the ground. Nothing had replaced it, all of it had been torn down and my packs and pack basket gone. Most of what I had hung out was still wet and now covered in dirt. I got my SO and he helped me bring everything inside before I went upstairs and knocked on her door. When she answered, I asked if she had taken my washing off the line and she smugly informed me that she had not given my permission to use her line and that next time I should be polite and ask and she might let me. Look, I'm going to level with you guys. I work in retail and deal with nightmare customers. I know how to be calm around these kinds of people and I try to be polite about this whole thing with the letter and the car, but my bed is my safe space and I wanted it clean and she effed with that just to be petty. I calmly told her that everyone can use the line, it is part of the building and nobody has to ask her permission. She tried to talk over me, but I just held my hand up and told her I was part of the strata committee, I know all the rules and who owns what, and she needs to pull her head out of her ass, grow up and stop her behavior, because it is not doing her any favors. I told her have a nice day before she slammed her door. And yeah, Ripe Stars, unfortunately there have been no further updates about this neighbor, but in case I see any in the future, I will of course keep you posted. And the next one is a neighbor story from Ask Reddit. My neighbors were just straight up rednecks who wanted the full neighbor experience without putting in any effort themselves. It was like they had moved from some hillbilly commune where you could just demand things of your neighbors. Every day when I got home from school, the 3 youngest kids would bang on our door until we gave them snacks. One of them, when denied snacks, came back and broke our glass door with a hammer. They turned the shared side yard, legally ours but shared because we were not necessarily using it, into a lumberyard / playground where they dug a massive pit for mud wrestling. No BS there, mud wrestling. The second oldest kid, 6 in total, had an old AC air handling unit in the backyard that he was allowed to hit with a sledgehammer when he got angry. He got angry often and at some pretty irregular hours. I ran into him at a bowling alley years after they moved away / got kicked out / went bankrupt. He had a tattoo across his chest that said Immortal Death in a black-red-black gradient. He also had giant scars all over his back, chest and arms. He said he woke up in the middle of the highway on Halloween night, all cut up. Who knows if that is true, but if it could happen to anyone, he was the guy. A few more redneck activities because this comment is getting some attention. Lighting bottle rockets out of the tailpipe on their dad's truck. The youngest kid got stuck in the mud pit up to his head and they couldn't get him out for hours. On rainy nights they used to put these rusty cots in the front yard and sleep in the rain. That one did not even register as redneck, felt more like an Addams Family thing to do. They somehow got their hands on what looked like municipal park playground equipment, one of which was a steel slide about 2 stories tall. One of the younger kids took a bike up to the top of it and tried to ride down, but fell over backwards and smacked his head on the metal steps a few times. The mom watched him do it and I specifically remember her saying, "He's gotta learn somehow," after he fell. And guys, as outrageous as all of this sounds, I definitely feel a little bit bad for the kids because it seemed like the parents sort of neglected their own children. And the last one is also a neighbor story from r/Ask Reddit. So this actually is my parents' story, but they don't do Reddit, so here you go. My parents live on a single lane dirt road about a mile back into the woods. It was originally strip mining ground that my grandfather owned and passed down. There are 4 houses on said road that all belonged at one point in time to various members of our family. Now, however, after several deaths, only the 2 middle houses, my brothers and parents, remain in the family while the first and last house were sold off to random families. Basically what I'm trying to get at is that this is a remote area and if you are not going to one of those 4 houses, you have no business on this road. Backstory complete. So this story occurs about a year ago. The family that lives in the end house, furthest from the highway, is going through some money trouble. The bank foreclosed on their home and they moved away. Fast forward about 6 months, the house is still empty and fallen into a state of disrepair as the woods are starting to reclaim their area. It is a weekend night and my dad is out of town on business. My mom is outside boarding up our shed because there are supposed to be severe thunderstorms and tornado warnings in the area starting any minute. As the raindrops start to fall, a black car with tinted windows speeds past her, almost running her over, and down to the vacant house. In her words, a big person in a black hooded raincoat gets out of the car and starts wandering around the property. Then goes back to the car and gets out a shovel and proceeds to start digging in the corner of the yard. By this time it is raining very heavily and the person is still digging. My mom is watching out the window because she is really scared. Like I said, this is remote and you pretty much know everyone who would be there and this person shouldn't. So this goes on for a while and the person has a huge hole dug. Then they go back to the car and pull out what my mom says looks like a body wrapped in a sheet. And then put it in the hole and start filling it in. Cue a freak out, my mom calls 911 and in about 15 minutes state police are rolling down this dirt road that is basically a mud pit at this point in numbers. So the state police surround the vehicle and have the person in the black hooded raincoat surrounded, guns drawn. This is a one-lane dead-end road, so there is no escape. They take him into custody. A few minutes later the police come and inform my mom that the person was actually the old neighbor who the bank foreclosed on. His large dog had died and he wanted to bury it in his old house. He had bought a new car with tinted windows, why my mom didn't recognize it, and did not see her outside, why he almost hit her with the car, and was too emotionally distraught to realize that digging a grave in a severe thunderstorm/tornado in a remote house that you haven't lived in for several months was a bad idea, or at the very least, poor timing. So guys, we have reached the end of the video and that means we get to see more Disney. Today a very sleepy Disney. She likes to sleep a lot and still likes to lick my finger. Don't even need to wash my hand. The cat is just licking my finger clean. She's just so cute. As you can see, she got quite a bit bigger. Like she's growing very quickly. And she's doing very well, right, Disney? Touch nose, touch nose. Oh, today it's not too cold, the nose. I like it when it's colder. She's really a cutie. I think she's a bit tired, so usually she likes to play with this stuff. But if she's tired, no play. I always like how cats punch something. It looks cute. But yeah guys, thank you so much for watching. Oh no, she like that. Usually we put them up against the window like this. So then she can, even the double trouble. So then she can play by herself. But sometimes she's interested, sometimes she's not interested. Yeah, if you were wondering, someone asked like where's her toilet and stuff, and we basically just put her litter box in the bathroom because it's pretty much a guest room and we don't really use it at the moment. No, this is just Disney's room. Any inspirational, motivational messages for the outside world, Disney? What do you have to say to the world? Okay. That sounds like world F off. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching. And Disney and me will see you again soon. And ripe stars, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you still cannot get enough of my content, then I would highly suggest to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will soon show up in the left corner of the screen. In addition, I would really appreciate it if you could not only subscribe to the channel, but also turn on the bell notifications, which you can do by clicking on the little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. This will help my channel tremendously and this will make sure that you don't miss any of my videos. Furthermore, if you want to see additional ripe content that I don't post on YouTube, then I would suggest to head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive videos that you will not see anywhere else. Thank you so much for your amazing daily support and I hope to see you again tomorrow.